Hi everyone, and welcome to this second lab here using Google Colaboratory. So in this lab we are trying to perform sales cutoff testing using the Google Colaboratory product. So let's hop over to the computer and pick up where we left off in lab 1. Alright, so let's pick up where we left off. In the first lab we walked through what Google Colab was and what Python was. And we named this file, so we said AIS lab exercise, something like that, right? And this was kind of the end product of that previous lab. And the way we got there was we used this markdown programming language to add these notes about what Colab was. All right, so that was lab 1. Lab 2, we're going to actually start working with the data. So let's close this, and you'll notice up here we have this code block. Now we're going to start wanting to work with code, but I want this code block to move down. I want it to be below where I have my notes. So I'm just going to click this down arrow, and what that does is it moves it down below where we had our notes originally. But I also want to add a brief note here above the first set of code, and I want to explain what we're doing in this first step here. So I'm going to call this step 1. And what we're doing here is we're installing a package called OpenPyXL and stats models. These are two packages. We talked about libraries in the previous video. Libraries are packages that have pre-programmed things that Python can do for us, and they're written by other users. And so if we think about what these two are, OpenPyXL is a Python library that is used to read and manipulate Microsoft Excel files. And then the second one, stats models, is a Python package that provides a complement to a package called SciPy. So SciPy is a set of functions that are commonly used in research. So we're going to extend the functionality of that package by adding stats models. So SciPy for statistical computations, including descriptive statistics and estimation and inference for statistical models. All right, so we're adding this functionality with these two packages. If we wanted to, we could go and look at what's in these packages, right? So what I have here is, in this window, I have the documentation for what OpenPyXL does and how it was written and how it was developed and what version it's in. So if I wanted to come back later and use this Google Colab notebook and I'm trying to remember what OpenPyXL was, I can actually add a link to my notes here so that I can, at any time that I want, open up my notebook and click this link and figure out what this thing was that I was doing, a month ago or, a semester ago. So just a handy way of keeping track of things. You can do the same thing for stats models. So stats models, there's also documentation here. Maybe it's good to keep track of this stuff if we need to come back to it, so we can add a link to this as well. And so we'll just highlight that, click the link button, replace this default link with our, and so now we have a good documentation of what we're doing here. All right, so now we're ready to get into coding. All right, coding is a lot easier than you think it is, especially now that we have AI tools like ChatGPT and Grok and some of the other large language models. They really are helpful in creating code. All right, but the first thing we want to do is install our two packages. So we're going to say exclamation point pip install. And so this is just the Python language. This is how you tell Python to install stuff. And we're going to install OpenPyXL. You'll notice as I type, that it's giving me suggestions on how to complete what I'm typing, which is awesome. So I'm just going to say install stats models. I can tab over, it completes it for me. And then bam, we're ready to go. So these are the 2 lines of codes that will install these 2 packages. We can click the play button here. This will execute the code. It will install these 2 packages. All right, and after about 18 seconds or 11 seconds, those 2 packages were installed. All right, that's it. All right, so now we're ready to move on to step 2. Let's add another text box here. So we're going to say step 2. We want to import another package called pandas. And so to bring in pandas, instead of doing pip install, we have to do a different command. And I'm going to talk to you about that in just a second. But let's talk about pandas. So pandas is a software library that contains predefined routines and functions that frequently are used in data analysis. In Microsoft Excel, we use functions. So for example, in Excel, we might say equals sum cells A1 through A5. And that would be a function in Excel. So what this pandas does, so pandas is a package of functions like that sum function in Excel, written in Python code that are frequently used in data science and data analysis. All right, so that is our node here. If we wanted to, we could do the same thing as we did before. We can actually look up what pandas is. So maybe this time we want to document our notes from Wikipedia. Copy that link. We'll go back in here, double click. We'll select anytime we mention pandas. Maybe we'll add a note. So we'll just add a link to the word. So we'll click the link, insert the link. We'll do paste. Then we do the same thing right here. And maybe we want to italicize that as well, so we'll do that as well. So we'll put that in there, and then we can make this italics so it looks nice in our write-up. And we are ready to rock and roll. Okay, so now we have our documentation ready. We can come back at any time, look up what this is. So let's add a new code block here. So now, instead of saying PIP, we're going to actually say import pandas. And we're going to give it a name so that we can make our code more efficient in the future. So we're going to import this package, and we're telling Python here, from here on out, we're not going to call it pandas, we're going to call it PD. So that'll save us some time when we code the rest of what we do. So we're just going to click run here, let it run. It ran in 2 seconds. All right, so we're ready to go. We can move on to step 3 here. So we have OpenPyXL, stats models, and pandas keyed up and ready to go. Let's do step 3. Step 3 is to, we want to actually open the data, open the sales data and shipping data worksheets. All right, so how do we do that? Well, what we want to do, and so let's close this, and I noticed the typo here as I was typing. This should be called pandas. Close this. Okay, So you'll notice on the left hand side of Google Colab we have a folder right here, and this is where you can add files to the folder. If you want, you can connect it to your Google Drive. If you have a Google Drive, you can directly pull in the files from the Google Drive. I'm going to say connect to Google Drive. You'll see down here at the bottom it's saying mounting Google Drive. All that means is it's connecting to the drive, so that if you want to pull in data directly from your personal drive, you can do that. Another way to do this would be just to click upload and go to downloads and select your file. So I will give you the file that you can use. It will be linked underneath this video, and you can see the file has uploaded here. The name of the file is raw data, and it has a date there. It's version 2, and this is an XLS file. That's why we installed OpenPyXL. That is the functionality that will allow us to read this file. Okay, so how do we actually read this file? Let's add a code block here. And so we're going to move this down to below our notes. And what we want to do is we want to name the data that we're pulling in. So we're going to call our first set of data sales_data. Now when you name things in Python, Python doesn't recognize blank spaces. So you have to use underscores if you want to separate words. So I'm going to call it sales_data. And I'm going to say use pandas. Remember, I named it PD up here. Use that pandas functionality, and in that package use a function called read Excel. So in Microsoft Excel we would have the sum function, and if you wanted to add something up you would type equals sum and then you highlight the cells. Well, this is the same thing. What I'm telling Python here is use the function that's called read Excel. Read Excel is analogous to the sum function in Excel. So we're going to say read Excel, and I want to read the data from this file. Well, I have to point Python to where this file is located. To do that, I'm going to click on the 3 dots next to the file name, and I'm going to say copy path. And then here in parentheses, I can paste that path within quotation marks. And all that is doing is it's telling Python exactly where to go in the files to find that data. And then specifically within that file, I want to import the data from the sheet named sales space data. All right. And that's it. This will read in the data. Well, you might be asking yourself, how do I know what data I want to read in? I can't see the raw data file. Well, all you got to do is just open this up in Excel. Or you could open this up in Google Sheets, or you could, so you don't need to do everything within this Google Colab product. So you can take things in and out as you're working on it. So if you want to know, for example, what is in this file and what data do you want to read, all you have to do is open up Excel, look at this file in that window, and then you can see exactly what is there and what is available for you to pull in. Right, so here is the, sorry about that. So my windows are getting a little crazy here. And let's make this a little bigger there. Sorry about that. So this is, let's open up Excel here. So Excel, we have 3 tabs. Let me bring this up into the window so you can see it. So we have 3 tabs: sales data, shipping data, accounts receivable data. I'm telling Python to read the sheet named sales data, and if we go back to Excel, I'm telling it to go to this tab, pull in all this data. All right, so let's close this out so we can read it in, and there we go. All right, so we have that. We also want to read in some other data, so we want to pull in the shipping data as well. So we're going to set up a similar command. So I'm going to say shipping data is equal to pd.read Excel, and we're going to do the same thing, and instead of sales data now we're going to pull in shipping data. And then let's say we want to look at a particular column here. So let's, in the sales data, let's say we want to look at sales data. In that sales data, right, this table of data that we just created here, we want to pull out the invoice month, which is a variable that's in that data. It's a column in that spreadsheet. And we want to set that equal to sales data invoice date. So we are creating the month variable. We're creating a new variable here, a new column, by writing this. So we're going to say .dt.month. And what this is a function within the libraries that we imported that calculates the month. All right, so now we're ready to go. We've set up our calculation of the invoice month. We pulled in our shipping data. We've also pulled in our sales data. So let's run this and import this data. So we'll click play. Looks like everything ran fine. We can check the terminal down here and see whether or not it ran fine. And our next step is, well, you know, I can't really see what happened. So if I want to check it out to make sure everything ran correctly, let's add some more code. And actually, let's add a text block first. We're going to call this step 4. Let's move this up. We'll say that this is step 4, and we want to eyeball the imported data to see if it looks as we expect. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we're going to go into a new code block, and all we have to say is we named our sales data that we imported, we named it sales underscore data. So all we have to say is sales underscore data dot head, and what that head argument does is it tells Python you want to see the first set of rows that are in that table. Okay, so we could say, let's see the first 10, let's see the first 100, but let's go crazy. Let's look at the first 1,000. Okay, so let's run this and see what we get. All right, so as you can see, we get a table. We have order number, order date, order amount, invoice number, invoice date, invoice amount, customer number, customer name, invoice month. Now notice that the invoice month, that code that we put here, is calculated by taking the month of the invoice date. So we programmed Python to create a new variable, and when we programmed it, we said, hey Python, look at the invoice date column, and I want you to pull out whatever month that date has in it. So if you look at this first one, 2019 2/15, that's February 15th 2019. So we should see the month 2 here in this column, and that's exactly what we see. Okay, so things are looking as we would expect, and for now this is all we have to do in this lab. We're going to stop here, and in the final lab, the next one to come, we're going to go through 3 more steps, and in those steps we're going to look at actual sales cutoff to see if we have any issues with this company recording sales before they've delivered the product to their customers. So I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks very much for watching, and remember, you're the best, you're the greatest. All you have to do is put in the work, and you're going to be great at this stuff. Take care.